Laura, thank you again for the delicious food. That's why everyone comes, you know, to the meetings. It's because of the food. So I think we're just gonna open it up for discussion now, from now until 12, actually, if we need that amount of time, and we may not. You know, if we feel like we've gotten everything discussed that we need to from the questions and the presentations, then we don't have to. But this is an opportunity for just open discussion between the commissioners and the UAB. So, anybody have any scintillating statements they'd like to make?
I'd like to talk about the breakfast casserole first.
Yeah.
Breakfast, always probably South Carolina, you got right. You guys familiar with Labella from prior to this involvement?
I'm familiar with Pease, which is the company in North Carolina, so there was. That's the North Carolina group.
That's where the 80 years come from. J&T was formed in Charlotte about 80 years ago, and they have done projects not only in North Carolina, but themselves, construction projects all over the world, Middle East and all over the United States. So it's a very well-established and prominent firm in the civil engineering construction business over the last 7 years.
I'll say from a contractor standpoint, Pease, my perspective, I don't think I was one of them. No, I wasn't one. I think they were considered a solid engineering firm in terms of the work they did. They were good to work with from the contractors. I think the owners liked them. They weren't considered to be the most innovative, when I say the most creative in terms of finding solutions. Now, maybe, I would think by being teamed with Bella, which is the bigger firm, and, you know, gives them a bigger world to look at, that may have been addressed. That would be the only comment I would have, negative comment I might have. That just wasn't their forte, that they found the most creative. They had found a solution, it worked, but it was one they kept repeating the same solution rather than, and when you're looking to save money, you know, that may, you need somebody that's, but he outlined, I thought the phases he outlined, which are kind of obvious, but nonetheless, he outlined, you know, let's get rid of the infiltration, and then let's look at the treatment plan, let's go back and
I
look
like
at
that part.
the other ones. I mean, that, it's kind of obvious, but they picked up on it, so that's pretty good.
Speaking of innovation, Richard, one of the projects he brought up was the town of City of Gastonia, and they put in a membrane filtration plant, which was not acceptable in the state of North Carolina. They just were dead set against it because the process of water much faster than the conventional plant was processing, and they put it.
Yeah, they did.
They put it through.
That probably came from Odell.
Yeah.
I mean, that impetus to do that.
And they put that through not only every agency, every approving agency, but design people and everybody else in construction of the plant. And that was kind of a gold star. The process had been used all around us, states, Tennessee, Kentucky, Virginia, so forth. But there was a hedge on the part of Division of Water Quality and design folks in Raleigh to not go with that process because they didn't fully understand how it works. That was very innovative for
I would agree with that. We see that often. I think it's very difficult to be the first in the state to get a new program initiated. So that is very complex from a regulatory standpoint.
I think everybody has met Clement. This is a new member of Clement Riddle.
Clement Riddle, nice to meet you. Nice to be here.
How to be worked to death on your first day, right?
He's gonna be with us for most of the day, I think, and he had some commitments previous commitments this afternoon he's got to get to. But I want to introduce him. We're proud to have maybe.
Yes,
We
certainly
normally
are.
give away I'm not gonna say that.
But when we've heard both presentations, you guys are gonna give us a recommendation? Okay.
Yeah, give us our best opinion, I guess, is what we.
Yeah, so one thing John and I were saying now, it's almost a little bit difficult to have a discussion now because we've only heard one presentation.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So-
okay.
One
That's
thing
all
I
right.
think we might want to think about, just as you expenditures particularly, but in terms of the scope of, Shannon, the scope of work we're gonna give these people. I don't think I'm over exaggerating. One of our issues, as I tried to bring up, was how do we get more people, how do we encourage people, not force them, but encourage people to hook up, get off their septic tanks or septic system and onto the sewer. Once we got a viable sewer system, we don't have one now, so we don't wanna encourage anybody to hook on it. But once we have a proven, the state's happy with the sewer system, we got it, we got, how do we bring the rest of the communities, especially the ones that directly impact the lake? And I guess one of my questions is, how much can we expect these firms to be able to help us with that, or do we need to think ourselves about maybe there's more to that than these firms can totally help us with, because y'all are more familiar with it. I mean, it's it'll be a very political issue.
Richard,
Yeah.
that came up before, and, the consensus at the time was, and I don't remember exactly when it was, but I think it was pretty early on in this process, was that, everybody should understand and have an interest that the properties that touch the lake should all come off of septic, because they're all gonna fail eventually.
Yeah.
And the mere fact of having a sewer line accessible to you, even if you are on a septic tank, the mere fact that it's there is a value to that property, and that probably those customers to be should be paying something every month, if it's not the full sewer rate. And that we could, and there were several options talked about how you get them to come on, and one is offering a reduced tap fee early on, and as you go along, that tap fee would increase. I expect there would be a certain number of people that are, know their septic tank is questionable, because so many of these houses were built just as a little weekend fishing cabin, and then now they're being used full-time with that same old sewer system, but would just be delighted for an opportunity to hook onto a sewer. And then there'll be some, well, I just put my septic tank in, I don't need this, and maybe they would have,
Well,
kind
I
of.
guess one thing I'm thinking about is this is just, when we're talking about fixing the manhole, maybe one of the answers is we need to actually put more manholes in and get further into some of these coves.
Yeah.
Because I know we had to spend a lot of money for Sunset Cove just on one side, just to get to the big. And that's a discouragement to, people to hook on, because it's a long ways away. That's just a thought.
One thing that I think is going to really help here is our strategic communications plan, because I think we're going to be outlining from a political or kind of social way, we're talking about changing people's minds about this. We're going to be communicating more accurately and more clearly to the people who live in Lake Lure, what's the need for this? So I think that's really helpful, and I know we're in the process of doing that. David and Laura and Shannon have been working on that. So I think, there's gonna be some natural resistance, but I think because we're gonna be more informative and more transparent, I think that combined with just a little pressure that's gonna have to be put on people who don't agree, and there will have to be pressure.
I think that's one place, whatever firm we hire can really help us, because a lot of people.
Well, and he alluded to that.
Yeah, they can help us convince people this is a
Right.
important issue for the asset we have. The lake, we're all benefit from the lake. Somebody's gotta recognize you can destroy the lake just as much as you can enjoy it.
Right.
without getting in the weeds too much, let me ask you all that have been doing, and we're finding out possibly we can, it's kind of kick it back a little bit. Find that we're gonna go back in the lake. Now, will the existing, pipes that are there in the bottom, that are the main carrier of, still be the same pipes used? You said about going deeper into coves. I'm thinking if we're gonna go more into around the shoreline, in the lake, but at the close, then maybe automatically we'll be able to reach more people by going into,
Well, that's what I'm thinking. I don't know the answer, that's a question you would ask them, but let me say, I'm assuming because they plan to have everybody connected to sewer, that the pipes in size anyway are adequate to handle the flow of everybody connected. I mean, that's an assumption, it's not a fact. but-
Right.
I mean, but I'm just saying that getting people, I mean, obviously, just to be jealous about it, the more people we have connected, the more customers we got, the more you spread this whole cost out. I mean, I was listening to these numbers they gave here about the flow now is down to
600.
point two, 230,000.
230, yeah.
I mean, if we could cut the infiltration down so our flow is 250,000 gallons a day,
We're business.
man,
Yeah.
Yeah.
the plants, no, I'm sure, any
Yeah.
plant's no problem with that. So, I mean, clearly, solving that I problem. Then I think he pointed out, then you go back and you say, okay, now we got the problem solved, we got a viable system, the states have to, now how do we maintain the system? That is, we replace one line every 6 months, or one line, or 2 lines every year. I mean, just some strategy for, to make sure it stays there.
What that says is the line in the lake is not necessarily the
Bad,
problem.
right.
I think
It's the
that's
manhole.
Exactly.
And-
Something's the problem.
Right, right. Or it's in the laterals within that 50 feet to the manhole.
so that could be a sleeve, a new sleeve in all the laterals,
Yeah.
and redo the manholes and start there.
Right, and Lobella brought up, which we hadn't really thought about, was a way to go into the main trunk and to service the main trunk if we think if it's only got 230 now with the water down, chances are that the wrapping, which mostly occurred on the main trunk, is holding, and we may be able to extend the service life of the main trunk and avoid that altogether. But then the focus is on the manholes and the laterals, which you could extend out because I think one of the key parts of getting everyone to hook in is it has to be like really accessible, like at the bottom of the, to be able to go into that line. And you could redesign the laterals, reinforce the integrity of the laterals to keep us at 230 or 250, and we're in business. But that's something that they would have to take a look at.
When you say the homeowner is responsible, yes, he is, but when he's running a line that's a quarter of a mile long, I mean, the quality of that line can be very questionable.
Right.
Not intentionally, just because of the way it gets done.
Right.
And just saying you have to have an engineer design it, great.
Yeah.
But somebody's gotta maintain that line. So the closer the town can get to having a line that we're maintaining, and that lets them come in and run, 30 feet in and connect.
Right. As a matter of fact, Rick, and it's a great point. I will tell you that a lot of those laterals that cross, they have no easement rights, that cross multiple people's properties is problematic to start with. Many of them are terracotta that went in 1927. So, when we redesign the new system, communicate to the people of Lake Lure, get people on septic to come over. The other issue is those that are already going to a manhole, we may have to convince them that they have to put in a new line because those old terracotta lines that have roots hanging in
Well,
them.
that's
Right.
that would be my point. That was kind of,
Yeah.
make it easy,
Right.
make it as
Painless as possible.
Right.
cost-effective and as, and let them know that they're really providing a service for the lake. I mean, forget us, they're not, each of us, the lake's the one thing we're trying to protect. I mean, that's what we're all, that's why we're all sitting here anyway.
Think of this messaging, Rick, and to that point again, a year ago, we were trying to convince every landowner that we're gonna put in a lift station up to the road, which we didn't quite know how to get across their property, would have dug it up completely, and with a price tag that started at about $15K per household, we can tell the people of Lake Lure, and I would tell them that, hey, look, we wanna be good environmental stewards, and by the way, we just avoided a $15,000 price tag. We're looking for your support in order to redo old laterals that are going down with nature on our side that goes into the main trunk. This messaging, I think we can start, once we start to get into the design, we can start to tell the story.
People had 700 square foot, 400 square foot cabins, you weren't protecting it, cabins out there anymore. You know, I tore one down. I didn't build one of the monster houses, but I got a lot more invested in a 400,000 square foot cabin. And there's a lot of big houses out there. And they only sit there because of the lake. I mean, somebody, somehow we should be smart enough to figure out how to convince people, look at, if we ask you to spend, you know, $10,000 to improve the connection, you got $600,000 sitting here. I know 10,000.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, especially that, particularly that don't live up here full-time, just really haven't been paying attention to it. No, they wanna come up and enjoy their house in the summer,
like
they're
a-
not,
it's just
they're
a
not
cabin.
thinking about that, yeah. It's kinda out of sight, out of mind, and first off, there's somebody who can afford a vacation home at Lake Lure.
Yeah.
So they're not concerned about, it's something.
I was
a lot
on
of
a similar
Yeah.
board in the city of Charlotte, and one of the issues they had is not dissimilar from this issue. They, when they would annex areas, they would have a main trunk line down here, and they'd have street, let's say a street with 10 houses on it. Well, somebody at the last house, their septic tank failed. And the rule was, once you annex, you couldn't fix your septic tank, they had their bond. Well, it was a very expensive effort to run to the 10th house.
Yeah.
And you had a tap on it. The city basically said, their system was what we've, I think, been mentioned up time, other people was, okay, we're gonna put the line in. We're gonna get our money back. That's our goal. And how we're gonna encourage you to hook on right now by telling you that the tap on fee now is $2,000. Right now, in the city of Charlotte, it's $10,000 if you don't hook on. So they did that, but they also made it available to that 10th person. They said, look, we're gonna run the line, you're gonna hook on, you're gonna pay the basic tap on fee. And they figured out how to absorb some of that cost over time, so that the 10th person hooked on, which encouraged everybody else to hook on because the line was already there.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a lot of studies and info out there for us to look at and.
It's also very hard to convince people, because we put in a line down Sunset Cove Road, somebody at the house at the end of the street, and we have not been able to encourage anyone else to join. So just the presence of the line by itself should be a great incentive, and it does increase property values, but that alone doesn't encourage anyone.
But
Well-
we haven't sold them, we haven't done a good selling job, plus there's no, we don't have a community that's involved in solving, in making sure we protect the lake. I think many of those people, one of our neighbors live in now, and so we pointed out that they had a slack line running from this, which means they don't have a field, they just have a septic tank, and they have a little blue line that runs into the manhole, which is the worst thing that could happen for a septic tank, because that's just basically water running through,
Yeah.
a built-in leak going right through. And, so, I thought, we should let them do it, but basically, once they understood, they're gonna go ahead and do what they need to do to hook on to our system. So, I think maybe that's an example of, if we do a good job, we can get people.
One of the things we could do is go to like the UAB, when people are making modifications like that, and convince them to put the proper system in at
Good
that
idea.
point. Which, in this particular case, that was what was done, but they would want to do that anyway. The solution, the best solution, that's a place where we can inject some information on, the sewer system.
That's a great idea. We'd also talked about having some town hall meetings, maybe have the UAB there and the commissioners, and where people can, because I think we have to be careful to explain it well to people so they fully understand what their role in it is and what the town's role in it is, and what, not we would like for you to do, but what has to be done. And let's see how we can make it less distressing to you than you might think it is. So I think moving forward, and we had talked about that, Shannon, that's gonna be really important to bring the community in so that more people are involved in it. And I do think when people have an opportunity to ask questions and get good answers, they're gonna agree with it. I just think most people have no clue, to be honest with you.
That's my feeling, you know.
UAV's got some legal, authority that we don't have, that frankly don't want. Okay.
Exactly.
But, they can make that a reality.
Well, I think if people understand what happens if we don't do anything.
Some consequence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If
Has to be
you-
some consequence, right?
Understanding what will happen if we don't do this, and what the impact is on our future and their personal property future, then they'll understand people. And they can help be a part of the solution. and not-
I think,
We don't need to threaten it, but we need to.
No, I'm-
No, we need to be-
no, but I do think in all of these infrastructure things, the tie between the value of your property and what we're doing has to be expounded upon. Because that's the reality of this, in any of these things, the sewer, the wastewater treatment plant, the dredging, the dam, the hydroelectric, it's your piece of property. So when you look at that with respect to how much it, so maybe $10,000 is really worth it to you now, rather than see the property, your value go down a couple of $100,000.
Yeah.
And I just don't think lots of people have thought about it with respect to that either. So I really think it's gonna be an opportunity for us to do a lot of good communicating with the public. I love your idea of having somebody go out and, so we know somebody's doing a project on our house and building a new house, go out and talk to them right then about it.
Yeah, you posed an interesting point earlier when you were with the city of Charlotte about the septic tanks. When it failed, they were not allowed to put a new one in.
Couldn't be fair.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know what the feasibility is to codify something like that for us, and that would be a point to encourage people as these
Okay.
systems age out. But it also depends on how much infrastructure we have in place in certain areas versus those that we don't. You know, like up Boys Camp Road, there's new houses going in with septics because there's not sewer.
I think another
That
thing
way.
that's helpful, because I saw this in the city of Charlotte too, and a lot of people, most people, when you present the problem to them, don't have a clue what's they don't have a clue on a solution. I mean, it's like telling them to go out and put a nuclear plant in, build a submarine, but let's sort of connect the list of, and I think other thing, maybe we can encourage this firm to be hired to help to come up with some individual, just little simple designs to say, this is how you, in this situation, this is how you can, have contractors say, this is what it basically costs to do that. You know, we'll look at your situation, but if it's like this, it costs this much money. Because I know a lot of people, I'm trying to sell my house in Charlotte, move up here full time, and real estate agent says, yeah, if I tell people they have to paint their house, they don't know what to do. I'm thinking, you don't have to paint their house. I mean, get their house painted, wait a minute, you call it painter. But apparently that's a foreign concept for people. It's like,
I think we'll get, less resistance to this than maybe we're fearing. Because so many houses are, you know, when you look at the value of our lots per square foot, most people wanna get the most they can, most house they can on there. And the septic tank's what gets in the way of that.
Yeah.
So any opportunity to get off the septic tank should be well received. And, if we start off with the fact that, you know, we have one of the cleanest lakes anywhere, and they don't stay that way on their own. And we have to be proactive to keep, our lake clean and our property values up. I think you know, there's always gonna be a few, but I think we'll get less resistance to it than if we were somewhere else.
To your point, though, that I think is good, I think some people may not know anything about it at all, but they panic because they have no idea what it's gonna cost.
Yeah.
So when you tell them you have to replace this septic tank, they think, oh my God, is this $50,000? So I think going into it, to your point,
Education.
with being able to kind of apprise them of this is what it possibly would cost for you, is gonna help sell it a lot
They've
better.
got some simple designs that the state had approved.
That's
right.
The states had
Yeah.
approved, and we had kind of budgets to them. to
And-
say, this is what you're looking at, then, you know, maybe people say, oh, okay, I don't like that, but I'll take that.
Well-
If I get that for $10,000, I'll go.
And being helpful to them in how they get it done, so they don't think they have to go out, I don't have to get this done on my
Here's somebody
own.
that does it, by the way.
Exactly,
Yeah.
that's gonna be a big one.
Yeah.
Here's about how much it's cost, and here's somebody who could do it.
Shannon, do we ever get access to Rumley Ball's flow meter? So we, what's coming out of there?
Right. Dave and I had a discussion about that about 3 weeks ago, and I think that we're looking at it then. John, I don't have a definite answer, but I'll get one.
Something's been done there.
Yeah.
Since I've been on this board.
I wanted to just briefly, if I may, just hit some of the things that I learned from their presentation. I just want to see if you guys think these are relevant. One of the things I picked up from this firm is that they clearly understood that communication is very important. And those guys showing that kind of appreciation for communication told me they were forward thinking when it comes time to develop a solution. I felt like they understood our issues. I think they had done enough research where they understood what our issues are, specifically on the sewer piece. I saw where they're willing to partner, even when they may not have all the solutions or answers. Reference of Oswego and then the subaqueous system in Missouri. They said, you know what, we'll get the guys from Pennsylvania to come down and talk to you about it. I think that was very positive. Clearly, they have a deep bench. They have diverse talent. I think that's clear. They have a lot of folks in the firm that they could pull on if necessary. I really like the 4 areas that they basically said their firm's kind of built around. Infrastructure, the building piece, which is something that we're going to be facing with Chimney Rock State Park and locating the new entrance into our town center. We need a firm that understands architecture, landscape architecture. I saw that. The environmental piece, we can point to the lake and say there's good reason for us to be thinking about the environment because it's hand in glove with what we're trying to do, and that's to keep that lake clean. And then they have an energy division or piece, and hydro was one of those. I thought that was very positive. I think they could understand our issues. They had relevant case studies, and I think those case studies underlined their ability to resolve complex issues that were multifaceted, that were not clean, that had multiple layers of players and partnerships. I think that would have a good relationship with DEQ. I think that was demonstrated. They can work with DOT. I think that was demonstrated. They welcomed oversight when they were asked about the question. Well, what firm wouldn't say, yeah, we welcome oversight? But they did, for the record. They welcomed that. They demonstrated that they clearly understood the need to use existing infrastructure as much as possible. I think we're going to have to do that when we think about the lake and the sewer system in there. And then the piece that you heard me express concern about as far as SDG engineering. We hired Kurt to come in and help us keep an eye, help us understand issues from a technical perspective day to day. You guys meet once a month, and those are very rich conversations that lay people like myself and other staff, sometimes we even have a hard time understanding all the technical pieces, but having an engineer day to day that we can pick up the phone and call and talk to has helped us. And that's something I value, and as a manager, I wouldn't want to lose, and that's why I expressed that to them. What do you see that relationship being like as we move forward? And they cited basically the Spindale case as an example where Kurt was already there. They came in behind Kurt. Those two partnered, and they brought a solution to a fairly complex system, and they did it in such a way that they had great accolades from DEQ. That was pretty impressive. I went to the ribbon cutting, and the secretary of DEQ was there, Regan, and he actually spoke. And everything they said about that was exactly, DEQ is absolutely impressed with Labella and SDG engineering. So those are some of the things that I picked up on, and honestly, I was pretty impressed. I think I felt like going into this, we've had 2 top firms, and I think you're probably not going to be able to go wrong with either one. My big concern is about checks and balances, and whatever you end up recommending to council, whatever council goes with, that's certainly what staff will roll with. But
Shannon?
I just want you guys to know what I saw is important and what I picked up on.
I guess we have no way to determine what we're looking at a cost standpoint from each different firm. I mean, that might, you know what I'm saying? I mean, if we pick,
Well, legally, they're not, the Brooks, there's a law, they allowed to,
Minnie
we're not
Brooks,
allowed to solicit fees from engineers.
Minnie Brooks. We can get a cost sheet, but we can't say, if you give us a better deal than the other firm, we'll go with you.
Well, I'm just saying if we pick one and the other would have been $50,000 less or something, I guess there's no way we know that.
Well, what we can do, what we can do, what we should.
Fee schedule.
Is we get a fee schedule, when we negotiate, if we can't negotiate a contract, we go back to the other person, that's the alternative.
Well, I'll tell you this, I don't think in short order, we're gonna be able to, we've got a contract approval set for the
Oh, no, I
14th.
just meant that's.
So those fee schedules will be attached to those contracts, and so that is their rates, and that's what they will be charging. Yeah.
And
The
some
one
of that
thing, that's
balance,
the one thing about LaBella that, if anything concerned me would be that a big part of their company, this may not matter, but a big part of their company is not in North Carolina. So that, out of 850 people, there's out of 147 engineers, 19 of them are here. So basically, a little over, 12% or something like that. So if we're at all concerned about, and we ought to be somewhat concerned, obviously, about not only the quality of service, but the fee, you gotta remember that they gotta support that whole company versus with, for a North Carolina job. Now, most companies, they handle it, everybody takes care of themselves. But bigger companies tend to, having been, worked for a fairly big company for 15 years for sure, they generate overhead. It's just, but it does get spread out as long as I keep it busy.
They got no business going on.
Yeah.
I think one thing to remember too is that, the design, the engineering oversight and design is, a relatively small fraction of the overall cost. So yes, important of how much you're paying for that 15 or 20%, but another really important factor is how much could they save us in the big picture. And so, they go hand, so you may pay a little bit more, I think, Shannon, in the short run, but you may save in the long run. So I think looking at both of those together is really an approach.
Yeah, somebody will come in and say, look at, you dropped your, if we can capture that 370,000 gallons with the lake, if we can come up with a way to capture 300,000 of those gallons, so that when the lake's back up, we only have 70,000 of those 370, there's a 370,000 gallon difference between before we lowered the lake and now, right? If we can capture 300,000 or more of they've saved, so they'll save us so much
Yes.
money.
Right.
So if that means, look, here's what, I need you to spend $4 million, I need you to extend your manholes up the coast, I need you to replace all the manholes and blah, blah, blah. And, so that costs more, we pay them more, but they saved us, it's kind of, it's an enormous.
Takes money to make money.
Yeah, no, exactly, exactly.
How much sludge does 300,000?
Right.
Right. The other thing that we were just talking about is, one thing this firm can do for us, and either of these firms, I hope, but this firm is, we're missing opportunity maybe to not extend our water lines out and capture water customers. And water customers, I take water, if you got to my street, I live there. Okay. I like my well, but it's not that good a well, and most people's wells are old. Water makes money, so if we can find funding over time, always be looking for funding to extend water, then that's an ongoing process.
I think one of the main things we need to look at is, like this, LaBella seemed to really have their arms around the grant and loan opportunities.
Yep.
And they can save us what we're spending on engineering pretty quick with that. So I think when the other firm comes in, that's something I'll be looking for anyway,
Yeah.
is how in step they are with those.
Well, we know their number, LaBella's 575 million, right? Well,
That they
what
brought
their-
in, yeah.
That was their number. LaBelle was 570.
In North Carolina, I think that's the only one.
Yeah.
But it's still a lot.
It's in that,
Yeah.
presentation.
Yeah.
It was 110.
Shannon, wasn't one of the contracts, involved the ownership of their actual work product?
Yes, yeah, and so those three things, the mayor and I had that discussion this morning, and the three things, Mayor, that jumped out at you were,
Well, that LaBella, Withers Ravenel wants a 30-day out if you terminate the contract for consideration, and LaBella just wants 7. That LaBella recommends going to, or in the contract says she'll go to mediation if there was a problem rather than going right to a legal remedy. and the other was that Labella considers it to be their proprietary information, what they designed for you, and they do not say you cannot have it, they simply say you have to ask for it in writing, whereas Withers Ravenel says it's yours. So those are,
I like it, it's yours.
yeah, I mean, those were the three, and so there's some good ones in both of them, you know, possibly whichever you chose, you just pick the, of those three, you pick the good ones and put it in there. You know, I don't see that's gonna be a
Those
problem.
contracts were drafts, it means that they can be. altered.
Absolutely.
They're always changing.
But I mean, those were, if y'all saw any, that's the only three differences
those
in
are
reading
the
them
big
that I
ones.
saw, other than 2 words that were wrong.
So just one more thing I'd add, to kind of underline something I said earlier, it's the checks and balances. We want the right firm, to find the right solution for us, and paying a little more maybe would save us a lot of money in the long run, maybe in the short run too. But having the checks and balance on the inside is important, and having you guys play the role that you play is very important. And so you don't find towns with that, and especially with your backgrounds and with the addition of a new engineer on your board. I mean, you guys have a lot of technical capability, and it may be that we possibly could bring that to bear as we move forward, and that then fills the void of checks and balances that I felt like we've had. Kurt possibly could serve as that forward air controller, where he's in here, he knows basically what it is we're dealing with day to day, and he knows how to target things with Bella in the background, LaBella in the background.
I think
So
it's
that's
important
a
that
possibility.
they demonstrated they don't have a problem with whatever relationship we want them to have with Kirk.
Yeah.
Or the
That-
board.
Or the UAB. That was very important, that information, very
I think
important.
that is, when we negotiate a contract with them, we need to be sure they really mean that, because I think that's where every small town I've ever worked for, and I've worked for a lot of building projects, these projects, not paying attention kills you every time.
Right.
I've never seen them not
Well,
ultimately get hurt by that.
From my standpoint, I can tell you that's been the problem here, in my opinion, too long. And I think there's people said it here before you, that's not gonna happen here
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
Just not, doesn't need to happen in a town like, well, it might need to happen someplace, doesn't need to happen.
We can't afford.
No, but you know, luckily for us, I think now with the commissioners that we have and the UAB here and Kurt, I think we have the opportunity to provide that constant. And they seemed amenable to communication, no matter how much you
I really did like it, may have been lip service on the communication, but we're involved in complex permits all the time, and there are 2 types of consultants. One, you hire me, I'm an expert, I'll give you your product in 12 months, and the other one that wants to be really interactive, and no project is successful if you're not interactive. And so there's gonna be 2 or 3 times where the meetings are inconvenient, but those are actually the days that the big decisions are made that are not really reversible without major cost. So, you know, it's important that they said it, but then you definitely have to hold them to that, and that's sort of accountability from all of us, because we're all busy.
Go ahead,
But communication's key.
The other thing, I know it's our job here today to make a recommendation, but I hope we'll be, this, or at least from my standpoint, I would want to be able to make sure that our recommendation worked well with what staff, meaning Shannon, our current engineer, with Kurt, and the other staff in the town feel comfortable with it also. I mean, I know that would value in my decision, because everybody I just mentioned is going to be wanting to work with the firm, not us, so.
Well, I would say, because we don't have Brad's out on vacation, that firm would be working closely with community development. Dean is here, I've asked Dean to come, and David Airwood is in and out. They've got work going on the hydro, so as we get to the end of the day, I'll try to get David in here and Dean, and we can ask them any questions.
All of y'all's opinion
Absolutely.
on what would be
Yep.
better. Last thing I want to do is make a recommendation, and all the towns like where staff going, oh, crap, that's not what we want.
Well, we were gonna name you if nobody liked the firm,
Yeah,
and
that's
later we
right.
were gonna say
That's right.
it was Don who chose this person. There's a method to
We
our
were
madness.
gonna say the village of Chimney Rock made us take this firm.
Yeah, that's right. Shannon, I have one more discriminating factor between LaBella and, think of this, so LaBella told us they were able to get the state to approve a wastewater treatment plant that the state didn't want to approve. They were it was innovative in addition to being energetic, right, Clement, which is a perfect point, but they were trying to be innovative and trying to get something done. Now, translate that to our dilemma that we're facing with the bridge over the dam, which is something the state certainly doesn't want to do. It's an unknown, it's a risk assumption, and so to me, that was very striking. We need the solid, credible engineering firm to go in there with facts, working with Schnabel, which they've worked with before, to convince perhaps the state to do something they don't want to do. And so that I just point that out as being a discriminating
I'm
factor.
a little bit concerned that their DOT, we didn't ask them this, and how much DOT experience they have in North Carolina, because North Carolina DOT, Pennsylvania DOT, and South Carolina DOT are three different animals.
Right.
And I don't know what kind of animal any of them is, but I know they're different animals.
Yeah, I can tell you later after the meeting what kind they are.
We didn't question this a lot, but if they could get a bridge open to McAdenville.
Right.
Yeah.
at Christmas, they got a magic wand.
Right.
Shut down
Yeah.
McAdenville during
But
Christmas.
think how much money that would save us, right? Just that one idea, okay, would be worth all the amount of money that we paid them to get that done.
And one of the other things that I like that they said was they like to promote us, so it's good for them too. Of course, they're marketing their firm, but that's good for us too. If they're promoting us to the state, to all kind of different peoples, whatever we come up with here, so I thought that was a good thing.
I think we've all been razzled and dazzled, but let's keep open minds
Yeah.
about what
Oh,
we're gonna
yeah,
hear
we-
after lunch.
Shoot, the conscience,
We
the
have
conscience
to
of
do
the
that.
I
conscience.
think, are we ready to break now?
Yeah.
I think it's noon. Thank you so much for your morning service. You now have 1 hour off till
Well,
we
now,
start
wait,
again.
let them know we're having, lunch is coming in, Shannon.
Yes.
Lunch is being served here.
It's being bussed into the
Bussed
kitchen
in,
right
but I
now.
think we can get up and sort of
That's right.
gen around now.
Things with the belt.
How about two people we had that you wanted about
I do. Shirley, she's by, Shirley, she just bought a certain